Hello, ladies. Today we are talking about weight and fat loss in relation to calories in the Menopause Made Easy podcast for you today. Okay, so before I dive into weight loss and fat loss, I want you to know that we are all unique. You may have heard N of one, just unique. We are all just ourselves. So I don't know where you are starting from. Are you a couch potato munching and snacking on foods that are not serving you? Or are you moving your body in a balanced way and eating the proper nutrients to support your health and weight loss goals? Or are you somewhere in between? Okay, so listen to this with where you are so that it can be helpful for you. So we've been told to eat less and move more over and over and over and over and over. But this is not the only thing we need to do after 35. And for some of you, you may already be eating too little or not moving enough or doing too much exercise or not eating enough nutrients to support everything that your body needs to do on a daily basis for you to function properly. But for today, let's just focus on why eating too little and all the crash dieting, calorie slashing you did in the years and decades before today is messing you up, and some suggestions about what to do now. Because I know so many of you reach out to me and you're like, Tanya, what I used to do is not working for me anymore. I'm so frustrated. So that's why I've just spent hours and hours and hours putting this podcast together, getting some information for you. So pick up your pen and pencil, take some notes, and let's get going. Okay, so slashing calories too quickly, that's the word right there, too quickly, and not eating enough for your body lowers your set point. So what does that mean? Okay, so it's true that to lose body fat, you must eat at a slight, hear that word, slight calorie deficit. But what happens with most women, and I see this all the time, is that unfortunately they do or did in the past crash dieting for years or decades, which makes getting into a real calorie deficit now much more challenging after the age of 35, because what we did before 35 is not the same as what we do after 35, just because we're starting this perimenopausal journey. For most of us, this menopausal journey starts at around 35. Okay, so I'm going to give you an analogy of a gas tank. So let's look at this gas tank analogy so that you can understand maintenance, surplus, and a deficit of calories when it comes to your body. So your body requires energy to live. So behind the scenes, these things require energy for you to live, like your brain function, kidney function, heart beating, digestion, pancreas function, lung function, hormone production, etc., etc. All these things are happening behind the scene. Okay, and your body utilizes energy to perform these tasks that are needed for your survival. And you don't even have to think about them. They're just happening behind the scenes. So if you lay in bed all day, these processes still have to happen, and they require energy to do so. And this is called your basal metabolic rate or your resting metabolic rate. So your BMR or your RMR. Okay, so calories, let's just do a little refresher here, are a unit used in measuring the amount of energy food provides when eaten and digested. Okay, so it's a unit of measurement. They do this whole heat thing. You don't need to worry about it, but that's how we get the calories on the labels. But unfortunately, calories can be off by as much as 20 to 25% on the labels that you read and the menus that you see. And even if the labels are correct, the amount of energy a food contains in the form of calories is not necessarily the amount of energy we absorb, store, or use. Okay, so I'm going to go on a little tangent here and just explain for you some of what might be going on before I dive in today's notes. Okay, today's podcast. So remember that the food we eat has to be digested and processed by our bodies. There are innumerable steps involved in digestion, processing, absorption, storage, use, as well as your own individual physiological makeup. And these things can all change the energy balance game. So the energy balance game is calories in versus calories out. All right. So for instance, and when I say we, this may or may not apply to you. Okay. So it will apply to us, but it may be more or less because remember, you are unique. I am unique. You are unique. If there was a one size fits all, then we would all look the same. Okay, so we absorb less energy from minimally processed carbohydrates and fats because they're harder to digest. We absorb more energy from highly processed carbohydrates and fats because they're easier to digest. So think of it this way, the more processed a food is, the more digested work is already done for you. This is why some people with compromised gut function can't handle eating whole processed food and have to retrain their gut. That's a different podcast. All right. So for example, research has shown that we absorb more fat from peanut butter than from whole peanuts. The researchers found that almost 38% of the fat in peanuts was excreted in the stool rather than absorbed by the body, whereas seemingly all of the fat in the peanut butter was absorbed. In addition, we often absorb more energy from foods that are cooked and or chopped, soaked, and blended because those processes break down plant and animal cells, increasing their bioavailability. When eating raw, starchy foods, for example, like a sweet potato, we absorb very few of the calories. After cooking, however, which is how I eat most of my sweet potatoes, the starches are much more available to us, tripling the number of calories absorbed. So interestingly, allowing starchy foods to then cool, so I'm sure you may have heard about this with potatoes and rice, before eating them decreases the amount of calories we can extract from them again. And this is mostly due to that formation of resistant starches. Okay, and finally, we may absorb more or less energy depending on the types of bacteria in our gut. So many years ago, we had a diverse diet, more minerals in our food, less pesticides, and we had different bacteria than what we have in our gut today. And if you haven't noticed, we have a lot of problems with our gut health today. So again, another podcast. But some people have larger populations of a bacteroidetes. I don't know if I said that right, but it's just oh my goodness, a species of bacteria which are better at extracting calories from tough plant cell walls than other bacteria species. So we all have different bacteria, your microbiota, your microbiome, whatever you want to hear. And the research is getting more and more. And this is why we know more stuff today than we did even 5, 10, 15 years ago. It's amazing the amount of information they're finding out about our gut. Okay, so here's a really interesting example of this whole process at work. So recently, USDA researchers asked test subjects to consume 45 grams, which is about 1.5 servings of walnuts daily for 3 weeks. And what they found was that on average, people only absorbed 146 of the 185 calories in the nuts. That's 79% of the calorie content on the label. And in similar research, people also absorbed only 80% of the calories in almonds and 95% of the calories in pistachios. Beyond the average, there were individual differences. Some people absorbed more of the energy in the nuts, while some absorbed less, likely due to the differing population of bacteria in their large intestines. And in the end, by eating a diet rich in whole, minimally processed food, the number of calories you absorb can be significantly less than what you expect. Plus, they require more calories to digest. Okay, I hope you're sticking with me here. I know this might sound a little complicated, but we'll wrap this up in a nice tiny bow by the end. Conversely, you will absorb more calories by eating lots of highly processed food, plus burn fewer calories in the digestive process. In addition, highly processed foods, which unfortunately make up a substantial part of a lot of people's diets, are less filling, more energy dense, and more likely to cause overeating. Just think of eating a whole baked potato versus a bag of chips. And just think of how many baked potatoes could you eat if you did that versus the bag of chips. It's so much easier to over consume processed food. Okay, and since the number of calories somebody or someone thinks they're consuming could be off by what I said earlier, 20 to 25% or more, their carefully calculated daily intake of 1,600 calories, if that's what you think you should be eating a day, could be really 1,200 or 12,000, just with all of the things that I just mentioned. So as you can see, there's a big margin of error for energy input, even if you are super conscientious calorie counter. Okay, so this doesn't invalidate the energy balance equation, which I talked about earlier, which is a relationship between energy in and energy out. And today we're only talking about energy in. Okay, that's the calories in. So it just means that if you want a really accurate calculation, you probably have to live in a really fancy metabolic lab to really calculate your caloric needs and the calories in the food, which can get super confusing. And I know we can use benchmarks, but this is why we use other methods in the Midlife Reboot, which is the program that I run for ladies over 35 to help you sort out how much you need to be eating. Okay, so there are so many different skills, and we are not all, but many of us are over relying on calories, and we're not looking at nutrition, or a calorie is not a calorie. We're not using other skills. So there are other tools you can put in your toolbox. Okay, so now let's get back to losing fat, because as I've mentioned many times before in this podcast, body fat is just excess stored energy. Okay, so think of a car. Let's use a car example here. You're going to think of a car, and your car will not go anywhere without gas. Okay, so you've got your car in the driveway, it's sitting there, it has zero gas, and it's not going anywhere. So gas equals food, obviously, and the car equals your body in this example. So for this analogy, you use a whole tank of gas every single day to run your errands. You fill it up each morning, and at the end of the day, it's empty. And this is what we will call maintenance mode. I wish you could see my hands here. I'm very expressive when I'm on my podcast. So let's say your gas tank overflows when you're filling it up, and you need an extra can to put the extra gas into it. And you can put the extra can in your car just in case you need it. And day after day, these cans are building up. You started with one, and over the next week, there are now 8 extra cans in your car with gas in case you need it. This is a surplus. So when you eat in a surplus, think of maybe on a vacation, a holiday, company, holidays, I said vacation, yes. Okay, you are carrying around this extra gas, fuel, fat for extra energy in case you need it. Okay, so that's surplus. You have those gas cans in your car. Now, last scenario, maybe you only fill your gas tank to 3/4 every morning. Okay, but this is not enough gas to run your errands. So now you have a deficit. And now you have to use those extra cans from your surplus each time you don't fill your tank enough. Therefore, it's like your body when it goes into a little bit of a calorie deficit and you need to use the stored fat energy. And so this is very simplistic, but I just want to keep that simplistic for right now. So I hope you can see by using that car example where you have maintenance mode, where you have a surplus, where you have a deficit of calories in your body in relation to the gas and the car. So using this stored energy over time, okay, so you're in a slight caloric deficit. Over time, your body fat will decrease, just like the surplus cans in your car, because what you need is homeostasis every single day to keep you alive, which is that basal metabolic rate. And I've done a lot of different episodes. Honestly, if you start at episode 1 and you just work your way through all the episodes, it's like a story unfolding. Okay. So our bodies are really incredible at adapting. And this is called adaptive thermogenesis. And I'll go into that in another podcast. Okay. I'll touch upon it today, but I'll dig my teeth into that in another episode. So if you once upon a time had a well-functioning metabolism that burned, say, 2,000 calories a day, and you decided, because you followed some diet advice, you did a crash diet by slashing your calories and you dropped them down to 1,000, let's say, for 6 months, you hung on for 6 months, your body adapted, and it makes that 1,000 calories your adapted maintenance. Okay, so it used to be 2,000. You went on a crash diet and went down to 1,000 calories a day for 6 months, and now that is your new normal. Okay, and yes, you probably lost weight along the process, like many of the ladies I talk to, but then they come to me because they gained it all back and more, because they couldn't sustain eating this little food, and they did not learn the skills of the daily habits for long-term success. Okay, which means you are unwilling to look at your daily habits and do the behaviors needed for long-term success, and you're still hoping that there's some kind of quick fix out there that's going to help you. And I'm here to tell you that there isn't. But if you want to keep trying, you go ahead. Okay. Now, in order for you to get into a calorie deficit at this new 1,000 calorie mark that your body has adapted to, you would now need to eat below that 1,000 calories to get some changes. And I've seen this with people. They'll say, Tanya, if I eat 800 calories, which is not a lot of food, they're like, I lose weight, but they don't sustain it and they gain it all the way back. Okay. And this is what I'm seeing with a lot of women over 35. They're just like wanting to go back to what they did in their teens, their 20s, maybe even their early 30s. And it's not working and it's messing you up. Okay. So you have been, and I don't mean you as in you, I mean, in general, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably interested in this information, but you have probably done some diets like myself. I did the grapefruit diet when I was a teenager. I did all sorts of slashing calories because that's what we were taught. And the thing is, unfortunately, when we're taught something 20 years ago, you may or may not be like, I am eating, sleeping, drinking, breathing, all of this information every day, you may not have caught up with the latest research. And the other thing is that there's so much resistance to learning new ways because you want to hold on to the fact that the old way worked. And, we've done episodes on brain and mindset and stuff like that. So that is a challenge for you. Okay. So women may have crash dieted. So they have lowered their basal metabolic rate and their metabolism has adapted to some ridiculously low number, meaning that they would have to eat some ridiculously low calorie number to lose weight, which is not sustainable. Now you feel like that doesn't work, okay? But the truth is, if you're not losing in a calorie deficit, then that number is not a real calorie deficit from your body's perspective. Okay, you hear that? It's not a real calorie deficit from your body's perspective. This is not about what you want when you want it. You now have to learn how to work with your body, get the skills that you need, have some patience and trust, and not work against it, which is what a lot of women are typically doing. Okay? And so for a variety of reasons, you are burning way fewer calories. And this is a problem many women over 35 are faced with. And it's why I keep preaching. If you get my emails, if you listen to my podcasts, that you need to work differently than you did before. Your old tricks are not working. But there's great news, okay? So if you're still with me, there's really great news because there is a solution. And I've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. But it's eating more protein. It's getting your fiber. It's resistance training, strength training, increasing your step, looking at NEAT, getting your calories back on maintenance. There's something out there now called reverse dieting, okay? So dieting, the typical old-fashioned dieting, less will make it easier for you to lose weight at a future date. I promise, okay? But you have to start reframing. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. You can keep banging your head against the wall, doing all your old tricks, feeling frustrated with your lack of results. And I say that with like so much love and compassion because maybe you're not ready to change yet, and that's okay. But if you are, I am here for you. And I offer my midlife reboot to women who really want to learn new skills for sustainable change. And they're willing to go on a journey to do this. And they are done with quick fixes and their health is really important to them. They are becoming the CEO of their own health and they're willing to do the work instead of putting that effort into finding quick fixes that, yes, will work short term, but will sabotage long-term results and make it harder and harder and harder for you to get what you want. Okay, so I know this stuff isn't easy, right? It's some of this may sound complicated. Your head might be spinning right now. But we've all been brainwashed, unfortunately. Like, just look at the media, look at the marketing messages. We're brainwashed to do crash diets, to eat a certain way. And we think somehow we're going to magically keep this weight off by going back to our old habits that got us into trouble in the first place. And this is why I talk about learning new skills and new habits because you're just a product of your habits so that you can upgrade your habits to take you to a new place. And again, that's why I created the Midlife Reboot, which teaches you the skills necessary for sustainable weight and fat loss with your health in mind. Okay. My first episode is the shiny stars. So if you need to listen to that, that's episode number 1, because if you keep getting pulled to these shiny stars, listen to episode number 1. The quick fixes, you can listen to episode 94. And the sad and crazy thing is, and this is so sad and crazy, and it breaks my heart because we're like a moth to a flame. The diet industry knows they are doing this to us, and they are preying on us, and they want us on this forever diet hamster wheel, and they know you will go back to your old habits and then gain all the weight and need to lose it again. And they know that they are downregulating your metabolism, right? Which is what I've been talking about, making it harder and harder for you to lose weight. They know this is a game that they know how to play. And they're preying on you because you're thinking you don't have to do the work. You don't have to do the work because, oh my goodness, look at that shiny star. It says I can do this, this, and this, and in 30 days I'll be lighter. And yes, you might be, but you're not going to keep it off. And trust me, I am a woman. I have been in your shoes. I spent years and decades wanting to believe that I could beat the system. And it's not until I was in my early 30s that I finally surrendered and said, okay, I have to undo and unwind my mindset, my habits, my beliefs, and I have to start building my skills to get me where I want to go. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, and that's why I started this podcast, that if I had not done the things that I do, I would be heavier. I'd probably be about 20 pounds heavier. My waist would be bigger. I may be diabetic or at least pre-diabetic. I know my health would not be where it is today. But it's not a crash diet I was following. I was making sure that I do daily, doable habits slowly and consistently over time that have brought me to where I am today. And that is what I teach. And if you're interested in that, I am here for you. And if you're not, that's fine. Okay. So, the good news is if you are too smart to fall for these diet plans anymore, these quick fixes, okay, I am here for you. So let's talk about a couple of things here. So, how do you get into a calorie deficiency, and lose weight when your metabolism has down-regulated and adapted? So in other words, you're a metabolic mess. Many of you may turn to using a calorie app, okay, to pinpoint your calorie intake. But if you go back to the beginning of this podcast and listen to the reasons why, this could be off about 20 to 25%. Remember that whole little tangent I took. Okay, so using an app is a theoretical approach to how many calories you need. How do you figure out what a real deficit is for you? Now, the complex answer is there is much more nuance to calorie deficits than just eating less food. And these nuances make it harder for people to get into a real calorie deficit to lose body fat. And the sad truth is you may be burning much fewer calories than what is on an online calculator or what an online calculator is recommending. So most individuals start losing weight by calculating what their calories are using an online calculator. Then they try to follow that calorie number. And this is what happens here. You are either not consistent for at least 8 weeks, but it should be more like 12 and more. Okay, so you're not consistent. You're not patient enough, which is really what I'm seeing with a lot of clients in their 40s and mostly in their 40s right now. They're not patient enough. They're getting very frustrated. You're not tracking accurately, or you are using like the theoretical deficit. Okay, so again, that theoretical deficit is not a real calorie deficit for your body. So you have to be willing. So when I have my clients come in, I am very upfront with telling them that we're going to play. We're going to play. We may have to do some reverse dieting. We may have to change things, but we're going to do it subtly over time. And you need to be patient, or else I don't want to work with you. You need to have patience. You have messed up your body, and it takes time for your body to heal and trust you again. Okay, and the main issue I have seen with my weight loss clients is not understanding how to sort out the calories that they need for the body, how much food they actually need to consume. And our brains love to lie to us. And they really do. They really, really think that we eat less than we do and move more than we do. And that's just to keep us safe. That's another conversation. Okay, so you have to be willing to put some effort into this. If you are in a real calorie deficit for your body, accounting for all your body and lifestyle nuances, you will lose weight and shrink your fat cells over time. And I just want to do a side note here. I think I mentioned this in my last podcast episode, is that sometimes you may increase your muscle mass and decrease your fat mass, and your weight may not change, but you have changed your body composition. So I highly recommend, if you are looking at numbers, that you get a body fat, like a bioimpedance scale, so that you're not just looking at one number. You're looking at a variety of numbers to help you understand your body composition. I also recommend taking photos of yourself from the front, the back, and the sides in a bikini or bra and underwear, and that you also take measurements. If you're really looking at wanting some, hard data, you have to do more than just a scale with a number. Okay, so the bottom line is, if you have not lost weight in a calorie deficit, you are not in a real calorie deficit for you. And this is good news. It means there's nothing wrong with you or your body, okay? Because your body is not defying science. It just means that you have not calculated properly what you need to be doing. And so it's time to investigate and play and have fun and be on a journey, which is what I started to do roughly 20 years ago, okay? And trust me, I had spent the 20 years before that pounding my head against the wall with quick fixes. So you're still doing work, you're just changing how you're doing the work. Okay, and in my in my reboot, midlife reboot, we have fun. We actually have fun doing this. All right, so it can be fun and letting go of dread and fear. And there you go. Okay, so you can take all the notes you want from all of my podcast episodes, all right? And you can do it on your own. That's awesome. I high five you. Or you can work with me privately. If you are so confused, you could just do a session or two, or you can come in for multiple sessions. And if you want also, sorry, I had a little brain fart there. You can join my group program, which is the Midlife Reboot, and I can help you through our coaching calls and all the information I have in there, figure out what's missing and how to get you into a calorie deficit for a short period of time. Did you hear that? A short period of time for your body, because we need to learn how to cycle, because we don't want our body adapting. All right. Okay. So in this podcast today, I've explained some reasons why you haven't lost weight in a calorie deficit. You may have been making notes, which means you can begin to investigate the next change that you need to make, and make one change at a time. Do not do everything at once, which I see, again, everybody doing the all or nothing approach. I know it goes against what we want to do, but it is really about breaking this down, taking the next logical step and going from there. And I know just from working with women for the last 30 years, you are looking at mindset, beliefs, emotions, habits, It's a whole picture of what's going on, and we do and address all of those things so that you can get your long-term results. Okay, so if you are ready to maybe get some support, and join a really supportive community and get help from me, who is a professional with 30 years experience, help you sort this stuff out. I have mentioned what I teach is not a quick fix. Okay, so if you're looking for a quick fix, I'm not your gal. I will teach you the skills you need for long-term sustainable changes in your weight and fat loss, which means your inches, with your health in mind. And I really emphasize your health in mind, because if your body is not in a healthy state, the last thing it cares about is weight loss. So you may need to do some things to upgrade certain parts of your body so that you can allow it to be in a safe environment so that it feels it can take the next step. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that has helped clear up some, things about calories, your body fat, losing weight, and share this with gal pals. Okay, let's bring them up to 2024 and what's going on, and ease the pain and suffering of trying to be in a healthy state and lose the inches, weight, fat that you need to. And yes, so please share this. I offer you all healthy hugs, and hopefully I see you in the midlife reboot. And if not, I will be here for you in the next podcast episode. Bye. Where's my pause button? Mwah.